On New Year's Day, my husband drank excessively and suddenly fell critically ill. By the time he was carried onto the ambulance, he was already beyond saving. Heartbroken, I held his hand and asked if he had any last wishes. Although he was on his deathbed, his thoughts were unnervingly clear. The first thing he did was apologize to me. "I'm sorry, Alice. Actually, you were the one who got into college back then, but I took your acceptance letter." I was stunned, frozen in place, unable to process what I had just heard. Then his second sentence hit me like a hammer, shattering my heart once again. "After I die, please bury me together with Lisa. She's the only one I've ever loved in this life." Overwhelmed with fury and grief, I lost all control. Before he passed, I died first out of sheer rage. Before my consciousness completely faded, I heard my son wailing over his father's body. "Dad, rest in peace. I'll make sure Lisa's funeral is grand and dignified." Chapter 1. When I opened my eyes again, I realized I had been reborn. Back to the year of the college entrance exam, the first thing I saw was a younger Sam, with that familiar yet distant face, now etched with clear impatience. "Alice, can you stop causing trouble?" As my mind gradually cleared, I hadn't fully regained my senses before he shoved me hard against the wall, scattering the study materials in my hands all over the floor. "You'll never get into college. Giving you these books is a waste. They'd be better off with Lisa. She's good at studying." The pain radiating from my back brought me to full awareness. I had returned to the day Sam took my study materials. Those materials were a precious gift from my father, who had swallowed his pride and asked an old war buddy for them. In my previous life, I had been reluctant to hand them over, but I eventually gave in to Sam's threats and empty promises. He had warned me that if I didn't give the materials to Lisa, he'd break up with me. He even promised that if I helped Lisa this time, he would never see her again. Back then, I was hopelessly blinded by love, and his sweet lies had made me forget all about the importance of those study materials. Now, aware of my rebirth and recalling everything from my past life, my heart turned cold as ice. Lisa's good at studying? A girl who's always at the bottom of the class, who can't understand a simple middle school math problem even after you explain it 3 times. Do you dare call her good at studying? Sam froze, clearly unprepared for my sudden defiance. "What nonsense are you spouting? She only struggled because of her health. She didn't perform well on exams because she wasn't feeling well. How convenient, getting sick every time there's an exam." Hearing that, Sam was momentarily speechless, a flicker of doubt flashing in his eyes. I ignored him and rushed to gather the study materials from the floor, clutching them tightly to my chest. This time, no one was going to take them from me. Seeing me guard the materials as if I were protecting treasure, Sam's expression twisted in anger. "Lisa was right. You're so malicious. Always thinking the worst of her." "Malicious? Ha, sure, Sam, I'm malicious, so what? Let me make this clear, these materials were hard-earned by my dad, and I'm not giving them to anyone. If you want to be with Lisa, go ahead. Stop pretending to care about me." Sam clearly hadn't expected such a firm response from me. A flash of panic crossed his face. He tried to calm himself, softening his tone. All right. Don't get mad. I was too harsh earlier. I'm sorry. An apology? Forget it. But if you want these materials, the answer is no." At that moment, I didn't even feel like wasting another word on him. Sam frowned deeply, clearly thrown off his game. Still, he tried to plead. "You won't get into college anyway. Why not give them to Lisa? If she gets in, she'll repay you. In your dreams. You're impossible. Look, I've told you, I'll marry you. I've only ever seen her as a sister." I rolled my eyes at him. There it was again, his old act. In my previous life, he loved using this tactic. Every time he wanted something from me, he would sweet-talk me when I resisted. "Say whatever you want. I won't give it to you." With that, I clutched the materials tightly and ran home, afraid he might try to snatch them from me. When I got home, my parents had already prepared the meal. "Where's Sam? Why didn't you invite him to join us for dinner?" Noticing I was still holding the materials, my father continued. "Weren't you going to give those to Sam so he could help you study? Why did you bring them back?" I've changed my mind. I'd rather study on my own. He'll only distract me. My parents exchanged a look, sensing something was off. I didn't want to hide the truth from them, so I explained. He doesn't want to help me at all. He said I'm stupid and won't get into college. He also told me to give the materials to Lisa. Their expressions darkened immediately. They had always cherished me and couldn't tolerate anyone humiliating me like that. Did he really say that? Yes. He looks down on me a lot. I no longer wanted to marry him, and to break off the engagement. I needed my parents to see his true colors. Chapter 2. I told my parents everything Sam had done to demean me and elevate Lisa, leaving nothing out. For example, when I did well on exams, he would sarcastically question if I had cheated. If Lisa cried, his first reaction was to accuse me of bullying her. He often made me help Lisa with her work, claiming that since she was from the city, she wasn't used to hardship and needed my help. As my parents listened, their faces grew darker and darker. My father slammed the table and shouted angrily, "That boy is outrageous. We've always treated him as our future son-in-law. And this is how he treats you? Acting so perfect in front of us, but treating you like this behind our backs." My mom wiped away her tears as she held my hand, her voice full of heartache. "Sweetheart, we were blind not to see that boy's true colors. This engagement is off." Hearing my parents' support, I felt a surge of joy in my heart. But if we break off the engagement, won't it hurt our family's reputation? After all, Grandpa was the one who arranged it. Your happiness is more important than reputation. Besides, your dad and I are not afraid of gossip. Thank you, Mom. By evening, as we sat down for dinner, Sam arrived with Lisa. The moment they walked in, Sam acted like he owned the place, ushering Lisa to sit down and casually saying my parents would prepare a delicious meal for her. He didn't even glance at me. My parents had always treated Sam well. Anytime there was something good to eat, they would invite him over, treating him almost like their own son. Perhaps he'd grown too accustomed to such special treatment, as he now acted as if he were the master of the house. "Auntie, I heard you're cooking chicken today. Lisa hasn't had meat in a long time, so I brought her here to have some. She's gotten so thin." "Chicken? What a coincidence. Alice is a little glutton and already ate it all." "What? How could she eat it all by herself?" Sam's tone suddenly rose, filled with dissatisfaction toward me. My mom's face darkened instantly, and the sound of her chopping vegetables grew louder, each bang echoing in the room. Even Sam, as dense as he was, could sense something was wrong. He frowned at me, signaling for me to speak on his behalf. I shot him a glare and ignored him, sensing the tension. Lisa tugged gently on Sam's sleeve. "Sam, it's okay if there's no chicken. Don't trouble Auntie." At that moment, my dad came out from the inner room, his expression cold as he stared at Sam. "What's this? Acting so unruly in my house?" Only then did Sam rein in his behavior. During dinner, Sam kept serving food to Lisa, treating me as if I were invisible. I chuckled coldly to myself but said nothing, quietly focusing on my meal. Suddenly, as if realizing something, Sam picked up some food and placed it on my plate. "Alice, you've lost weight too. Eat more." I pushed the food aside and continued eating without looking up. Seeing my indifference, he didn't seem upset. "Uncle, Auntie, Alice is still mad at me. It's my fault. I've been so focused on preparing for the exams that I've neglected her." His words were clever, appearing to blame himself on the surface but subtly implying that I was being unreasonable. In the past, my parents would have been charmed by this and might have scolded me. But after hearing my earlier complaints about Sam, they weren't buying it anymore. When my parents didn't respond, Sam assumed they had been appeased. Cautiously, he began to test the waters. "Uncle, Auntie, I came here today with Lisa to get the study materials. Alice had agreed to give them to us but then changed her mind. When did I ever say I'd give them to you? What you say doesn't matter. I want to hear what Uncle and Auntie think." Chapter 3. My father put down his bowl and chopsticks. "Sam, in the past, we treated you well because of your engagement to Alice. But you've been bullying her. From today onward, your engagement with Alice is cancelled. Don't come to our house again." Sam's eyes widened in disbelief. "Uncle, are you misunderstanding something? If you don't want to give me the materials, that's fine, but there's no need to be so angry. My mother, furious, replied, misunderstanding? We know exactly what you've done to Alice. There's no way we'll let our daughter marry someone like you. Sensing the situation turning against her, Lisa began to cry with fake sincerity. It's all my fault. I'm the one who caused the misunderstanding between Sam and Alice. If you want to blame someone, blame me. I sneered. Stop pretending. I've seen through your little schemes long ago. Sam tried to defend Lisa, but my father interrupted and firmly issued an ultimatum. Leave. Don't come back. After being kicked out, I grabbed a large, juicy chicken leg and followed them to send them off. As they turned around, their eyes locked onto the glistening chicken leg, and they swallowed hard. The two of them glared at me hatefully before storming off. After this incident, Sam came looking for me several times, but I refused to see him. My parents also made it clear he was no longer welcome, realizing he had no face to show. He eventually stopped coming. In my previous life, Lisa had gotten the study materials, but she still failed to get into college. That's when they came up with the idea to take my college spot, keeping the truth hidden from me for a lifetime. Life went on peacefully for a while, and I focused entirely on preparing for the college entrance exam. Finally, the exam day arrived. Outside the exam hall, I ran into Sam and Lisa, who had arrived late. Compared to my calm composure, Lisa looked nervous and jittery. Sam, oblivious to her anxiety, assumed her discomfort was because of me. After falling out with my family, he had stopped pretending to be polite. So, you actually dared to show up. I heard you've been working hard lately. What? Jealous? Ha, you're ridiculous. Just don't cry when you fail the exam. Not wanting to waste my time arguing with them, I glanced at Lisa, whose gaze was shifting nervously, and sneered before walking into the exam hall. The exam was about to begin. The bell rang, carrying my dreams and hopes. I stepped into the exam hall. Inside, the room was so quiet that only the faint scratching of pens on paper could be heard. When the bell signaling the end of the exam rang, I put down my pen and let out a long sigh of relief. My heart filled with calm. I was confident this time I had performed better than ever before. As I left the exam hall, I ran into Lisa again. She was deliberately waiting there. When she saw me, all the nervousness and anxiety she had shown before the exam were gone, replaced by smugness and gloating. She looked as if she were already certain she had gotten into college. Recalling what had happened in my past life, unease crept into my heart. Alice, no matter how hard you try, it's useless. You'll never turn your life around, she said softly, her voice just loud enough for me to hear. Watch as Sam and I leave this mountain village far behind, leaving you in the dust forever. I knew Lisa had an uncle working in the education bureau, and in my past life, her college admission had undoubtedly been tied to him. But this time, I had anonymously reported her uncle before the exam, accusing him of corruption and abuse of power. Her uncle should still be under investigation. The thought eased my nerves considerably. Waiting for the admission letter was an agonizing process. Nearly every day, I went to the village entrance to wait for the postman, afraid that my letter would be intercepted again. The villagers thought I was overreacting. Even the village chief tried to console me. Alice, there's no rush. If you get a letter, I'll deliver it to you personally. You don't need to come here every day. I can't. Chief, I just can't trust it. Just then, Sam arrived. He glanced at me disdainfully. Still haven't given up? Stop embarrassing yourself. I'm not heartless. Your family has treated me well these years. Once I succeed in the city, I'll repay you. I sneered coldly. Repay? His so-called repayment was stealing my chance at college and then coming back as a self-proclaimed savior, saying he didn't mind and was still willing to marry me. In that life, I had worked tirelessly for him, cooking, cleaning, and caring for him without complaint, only to be looked down upon for the rest of my life. Get lost! You're so ungrateful. The village chief stepped in, trying to mediate. Let's calm down. No need to fight. With the chief intervening, the argument didn't escalate. But at that moment, the conversation of two villagers nearby stopped me dead in my tracks. Sam and Lisa, those two young ones are impressive, aren't they? Absolutely. Both got into college. They've brought honor to the village. My mind went blank, and I swayed on my feet, struggling to stay upright. Their fragmented conversation reached my ears. I heard a leader from the Education Bureau personally delivered the admission letters. Apparently, one of them is the top scorer in the college entrance exam. Even reporters from the newspaper are coming. Lisa and Sam are at the youth center right now, giving interviews. Chapter 4. The top scorer of the college entrance exam. In my previous life, I hadn't done that well, so there was naturally no grand event of an Education Bureau leader personally delivering an admission letter. I lost all sense of reason and rushed to the youth center. By the time I got there, a large crowd had already gathered. At the center of the crowd, Lisa and Sam stood with smug smiles, confidently speaking into the reporters' microphones. Seeing their faces, my anger surged to its peak, and without thinking, I charged forward. "You two liars!" The crowd immediately fell silent, everyone staring at me in shock. Lisa's expression faltered for a moment but quickly regained her composure. "Alice, what are you doing here? I know you're upset about failing the exam, but this is such an important occasion. Please don't make a scene." "Make a scene? You're a thief who stole my exam results, and you dare accuse me of making a scene?" I tried to get closer to them, but someone in the crowd held me back. Sam frowned and said in a low voice, "Stop spouting nonsense. Lisa earned her admission fair and square." "Fair and square? Your so-called fairness involves tampering with scores and pulling strings, doesn't it?" My voice was loud enough for everyone to hear. The reporters nearby began whispering to each other, their eyes filled with curiosity and doubt. Lisa glanced nervously at her uncle, the Education Bureau leader, her eyes pleading for help. Her uncle, however, remained composed. "Do you have any evidence? If you don't, then stop slandering people here." I took a deep breath, unable to comprehend why, despite my anonymous report, he was still standing here unscathed. Was I really going to be pushed into a corner by them again? "I'll find the evidence. You won't get away with this." I scanned the familiar faces of the villagers around me and said loudly, "Don't let them fool you. The truth about their wrongdoings will come to light sooner or later." After speaking, I turned and left the youth center, leaving behind a chorus of murmuring voices. Back home, I gradually calmed down and began to carefully think about how to uncover their cheating evidence. My parents had also heard about the commotion I caused at the youth center, but neither of them blamed me. Instead, they gently tried to comfort me. "Alice, we'll have to seek help from Grandpa Oliver." Grandpa Oliver? Given the situation, it's clear they're protecting each other within the system. We ordinary people can't fight against that. Our only option is to ask for Grandpa Oliver's help. I knew Grandpa Oliver. My college entrance exam review materials were provided by him. He and my grandfather had been comrades in arms during life-or-death battles. While my grandfather retired early due to poor health, Grandpa Oliver became a prominent figure in the military. My father brought out a badge, an honorary medal my grandfather earned during the war against the Japanese invasion. "Include this badge with the letter. It will carry more weight." I carefully stored the badge and slipped it into the envelope along with the letter I had written, holding the letter that carried my family's hopes. I personally went to the post office and solemnly dropped it into the mailbox. On my way home, I ran into the last people I wanted to see. Lisa, radiating smugness, was holding on to Sam's arm, looking at me with a provocative gaze. Sam stood silently beside her. Although he didn't speak, the slight tilt of his chin and the cold indifference in his eyes exuded arrogance. "Well, if it isn't Alice, why do you look so miserable?" Lisa was the first to speak, her voice sharp and grating. "I advise you to give up already. Stop struggling for nothing. I'm definitely going to college, and all you can do is watch." Chapter 5. Lisa, don't get too carried away. Heaven is watching. Haha, the rage of the powerless. Sam laughed heartily. "Stop being naive, Alice. Originally, if you hadn't made a fuss, I might have still married you. But now, with your antics, there's no way I'll honor the engagement anymore. The truth will come out eventually. Just wait for your karma." Lisa sneered, curling her lips. "Go ahead and try. Let's see if anyone actually believes what you say." With that, she linked arms with Sam, swaying her hips as they strutted past me. She intentionally bumped my shoulder on the way. I clenched my fists, suppressing the anger and grief boiling inside me. Watching their retreating figures, I silently vowed to bring them to justice. Back home, I anxiously waited for Grandpa Oliver's reply. Every passing moment felt unbearably long, but for several days, there was no news at all. My heart sank with each passing day. I began to worry. Had something happened to the letter on the way? Or was Grandpa Oliver too busy to deal with my matter? Just as I was about to fall into despair, one evening, a military green Jeep slowly drove into our village and stopped in front of my house. A middle-aged man in military uniform stepped out of the vehicle. His sharp gaze swept across the surroundings before he headed straight toward our house. My heart pounded wildly, and a strong sense of anticipation surged within me. "Excuse me, is this Alice's home?" My parents and I rushed out. Nodding nervously, the soldier smiled and said, "I'm Major Oliver's adjutant. He received your letter and takes this matter very seriously. He sent me to gather more information about the situation." Overwhelmed with relief and gratitude, I nearly burst into tears. I hurriedly recounted every detail of what had happened, Lisa and Sam's suspicious actions, their uncle's influence in the Education Bureau, and the failure of my earlier anonymous report. The adjutant listened intently, his expression growing more serious. These people dared to tamper with something as serious as the college entrance exam. This cannot be tolerated. Don't worry. Major Oliver will ensure justice is served. He then asked for more critical details and collected the evidence I had on hand before leaving in a hurry, saying he needed to report back to Grandpa Oliver. In the days that followed, I remained anxious yet held on to a faint glimmer of hope in my heart. The university term hadn't started yet, so Lisa and Sam were still in the village. They no longer bothered to hide their relationship, spending all their time together openly. One day, as I passed by the youth center, I saw Sam and Lisa laughing heartily amidst a group of cheering villagers. Sam noticed me out of the corner of his eye and suddenly ran toward me. He glanced cautiously over his shoulder at the group of people, then spoke to me in a low voice. "I remember your family has a red badge. The one with the national emblem on it, right?" "What do you mean?" "I was just thinking, it'd be nice to have a keepsake. You know, I'll be leaving the village soon, and you'll be staying here. We probably won't see much of each other." He struggled to suppress the greed and fervor in his eyes. "Why don't you give me the badge as a keepsake? It's not worth much anyway." Looking at Sam's hypocritical face, disgust and anger surged within me. That badge was a symbol of honor, earned by my grandfather through blood and sacrifice. It represented my family's dignity and legacy, something Sam could never be allowed to covet. "Dream on." I rejected him without hesitation. "That badge is a family heirloom. Even if it were worthless, I'd never hand it over to someone like you." Sam's expression darkened slightly, a hint of malice flashing in his eyes, but he quickly replaced it with his usual fake kindness. "Alice, let's be reasonable. You don't have anything else of value left. What's the point of holding on to that badge? If you give it to me, who knows, when I make it big someday, I might even come back to help you out." Chapter 6. Suddenly, I remembered how in my past life, I had given him the badge at his insistence. Sam had used that badge to gain entry into Grandpa Oliver's unit, where he thrived in the military and rose to prominence. "Sam, spare me your fake kindness. You make me sick." A flash of panic and urgency crossed Sam's eyes. A few days ago, he had overheard Lisa's uncle mention this badge in passing. That was when he realized how valuable the badge truly was. The owner of the badge was a close comrade of Oliver, the leader of the Southern Military District. If he could get his hands on the badge, wouldn't he have a chance to climb that ladder? "You just want to marry me, don't you? Give me the badge, and I promise I'll come back and marry you after I graduate." Hearing this, I rolled my eyes at him. I had no interest in continuing this conversation. I turned to leave. Seeing this, Sam became angry and reached out to grab me. Just then, Lisa's voice rang out from nearby. "Sam, what are you doing?" Sam froze mid-motion, quickly pulling his hand back. Instantly, he plastered on a flattering smile and walked toward Lisa. Lisa frowned, her eyes filled with displeasure and suspicion. "Oh, what are you two talking about? Seems like you're having quite the conversation." "Lisa, You've got it wrong. I was just saying a few things to Alice, trying to convince her not to dwell on the whole college thing anymore. I snorted coldly. Sam, you're such a master of twisting the truth. You know exactly what kind of filthy thoughts you're hiding. Lisa's face darkened immediately. She glared at me. What do you mean by that? Don't think failing your exams gives you the right to make trouble here. Jealousy won't get you anywhere. Lisa, the shady things you and Sam have done will catch up with you sooner or later. I advise you both to behave yourselves. Lisa was left speechless for a moment, struggling to come up with a retort. But before she could, Sam quickly grabbed her arm. Don't argue with her. You're making a scene for everyone to watch. Then he turned back to me. Alice, think carefully about what I said today. I'll be waiting for your answer. Impossible. Stop dreaming. After saying this, I walked away quickly without looking back. Behind me, I could hear their hushed argument. It seemed Lisa was questioning Sam about what he had said to me. When I got home, I was still fuming. I told my parents about what had just happened. They were both furious and anxious. My father paced back and forth in the room, his face dark with anger. That Sam is outrageous. How dare he covet our family's heirloom? His intentions are despicable. My mother tried to comfort me, telling me not to take it to heart and reassuring me that Grandpa Oliver would surely find a way to deal with them. In the following days, Sam kept passing by our house, as if by coincidence. I knew he was just after the badge. Every time I saw him lingering nearby, I felt an overwhelming disgust, like a fly buzzing in my ear that I couldn't swat away. I decided to shut myself indoors, avoiding him entirely. But even then, my heart felt as heavy as if weighed down by a boulder. One day, as I passed an alleyway, I suddenly heard a hushed conversation from outside. Peeking through a crack in the door, I saw Sam and Lisa arguing quietly. Are you still hung up on that country girl? Lisa, stop imagining things. I only care about that badge because it could help us in the future. Nothing else. As I eavesdropped on their quarrel, I sneered silently. These two were truly greedy and selfish. Is that badge really so important? Of course. Your uncle said so. How could it not be true? With that badge, I can get close to Major Oliver. Then how do you plan to get it from her? She didn't give it to you last time, did she? If persuasion doesn't work, we'll use force. I found out she's been going up the mountain alone to collect herbs recently. When she's up there. Chapter 7. Although Sam lowered his voice toward the end of his conversation, I still heard enough to feel my heart tighten. I couldn't believe they had such malicious intentions. I decided not to go to the mountains alone to collect herbs anymore, avoiding giving them any opportunity. However, Sam and Lisa didn't stop there. Seeing that I had stopped going up the mountain, they began spreading rumors in the village about my family's badge. They claimed the badge was a cursed object that would bring disaster to the village. They were trying to incite the villagers against my family, hoping to pressure me into handing over the badge. One day, Sam came to my house with a group of people. Coincidentally, when my parents weren't home, the villagers shouted one after another, demanding I hand over the cursed object. This isn't a cursed object, it's a medal awarded to my grandfather by the government. I tried to explain, but Sam interrupted me. Your grandfather was a hero, but in the end, it's just a dead man's relic. Who knows how much enemy blood is on it? Hearing Sam's words, the villagers' expressions changed. They all began demanding that I get rid of the badge. What was clearly a symbol of my grandfather's honor had been twisted by a few words from Sam into a so-called cursed object. Lisa stood in the middle of the crowd, smirking gleefully. I was so angry my whole body trembled. How dare you slander my grandfather's honor like this? You're despicable. Sam. Humph. It's the truth. Keeping that thing will only bring bad luck to the village. Those 3 years of drought, who's to say they weren't caused by your grandfather's badge? The people with Sam began to echo his claims, shouting various threats as they slowly advanced toward me. I looked around at the familiar yet suddenly unfamiliar faces, my heart filled with sorrow. Everyone, please calm down. My grandfather dedicated his life to protecting us and this village. He was a hero. This badge is an honor earned with his life. How could it possibly be a cursed object? Sam has ulterior motives. He just wants to trick you into handing over the badge so he can use it for his own gain. Don't let him manipulate you. However, the villagers, deeply influenced by Sam's rumors, were not moved by my words. Lisa burst into laughter. Enough already. Just hand over the badge and stop wasting your breath. She exchanged a glance with Sam, their eyes filled with malicious determination and greed. At that moment, I suddenly remembered some of the battle stories my grandfather had shared with me. Back then, my grandfather's unit was surrounded by the enemy. Supplies were running out, and the situation was dire. During the charge, he was seriously injured but kept fighting until reinforcements arrived. This badge was awarded to him by the government after that battle. It represents my grandfather's honor and is a symbol of pride for our village. The villagers began whispering among themselves, their expressions softening slightly. Sensing the shift, Sam became enraged and shouted, "Don't listen to her nonsense. It's just a cursed object." At that moment, the village elder arrived in a hurry. He had always respected my grandfather and knew the true history of the badge. The elder stood by my side, glaring sternly at Sam and the troublemakers. "Have you caused enough chaos? This badge is a symbol of heroism and the pride of our village. No one is going to take it away." More villagers began to waver, though some still resisted. "But it's still something that belongs to the dead." "Yeah, it's something earned through killing. How can we know it's clean?" These words completely infuriated the elder. He slammed the table forcefully and said, "He killed Japanese invaders. He's a hero. It's as clean as it gets." "Well said." Outside, a deep, resonant voice suddenly rang out. Everyone turned to see my parents walking toward us, accompanied by a tall, upright elderly man. It was Grandpa Oliver. I had seen his photo with my grandfather before. Chapter 8. And who are you? Since when does an outsider have the right to meddle in our village affairs? Lisa shot Grandpa Oliver a disdainful look, her posture arrogant. Sam, more perceptive, noticed the commanding aura of the newcomer. The elderly man's neatly combed white hair and dignified demeanor were far from ordinary. He quickly plastered on a smile. "I'm sorry, sir." Lisa speaks her mind. Please don't take her words to heart. What if I insist on taking them to heart? Grandpa Oliver's blunt response instantly made Sam's expression sour. My parents walked up to me, worriedly asking if I was okay. I shook my head and looked toward Grandpa Oliver. Meeting his gaze, he smiled and nodded at me, signaling for me to stay calm. "I respect you as an elder, but don't push your luck," Sam said, trying to maintain his composure. "Oh, is that so? You two thieves already stole Alice's college admission, and now you want to take her grandfather's legacy as well? Outrageous!" Sam and Lisa's faces turned pale at his words. You're slandering us. We earned our college admission through our own efforts. Just because Alice didn't do well doesn't mean it's our fault." Lisa chimed in, though her voice lacked confidence. "Exactly. If you failed, that's on you. Don't try to blame us for it. You have no proof." I glared at them, my voice firm. "No proof? The files in Grandpa Oliver's hands are the proof. You think you've covered your tracks perfectly, but heaven's justice is inescapable." Sam's eyes flickered with panic for a moment before he forced himself to sound defiant. "What files? Who knows where those came from?" Lisa added. "Yeah, you probably faked them to get revenge on us. Stop trying to change the subject and just hand over the badge already." Grandpa Oliver pulled out the badge. "You want this? Do you think you're even worthy?" The surrounding villagers began murmuring among themselves, their gazes shifting between us. At that moment, the village chief arrived. "Lisa, Sam, stop this nonsense right now. This is Grandpa Oliver, a senior commander in the military district. He's not someone you can afford to provoke." The village chief's words landed like a bomb, leaving Sam and Lisa frozen in place, their faces drained of color. Sam's body started trembling uncontrollably as he stammered. How could this be?" Before he could finish, several military vehicles roared into the village. The vehicles stopped, and rows of soldiers got out. The soldiers saluted Grandpa Oliver in unison. "Greetings, Commander." Grandpa Oliver returned the salute. "Take these two away. They violated the law by taking someone else's college admission. Such behavior cannot be tolerated." "Yes, sir," the soldiers responded in unison and moved toward Sam and Lisa. Seeing this, the villagers erupted into whispers. Commander Oliver, we were wrong. We truly know we were wrong. Please, forgive us just this once. Lisa dropped to her knees, trembling. She had, of course, heard of who Grandpa Oliver was in the Southern Military District. Tears streamed down her face as she frantically cowed out, "Commander Oliver, I was wrong. I shouldn't have said those awful things. Please, forgive me." Her hair was a tangled mess, falling over her face, making her look utterly wretched. Grandpa Oliver spoke slowly and firmly. "You will face the punishment you deserve." The villagers erupted into shocked murmurs. Sam, hearing Grandpa Oliver's words, trembled uncontrollably like a leaf in the wind. Lisa cried so hard it was gut-wrenching. Seeing their reactions, the villagers finally understood the truth and began voicing their condemnation. They always seemed so proper, but who knew they'd do something this vile? Alice is such a kind girl, and they ruined her life. They must be punished. So Alice was telling the truth that day. Chapter 9. The village chief stood to the side, stomping his foot in anger. "You two are a disgrace. I always suspected you weren't up to any good, but I never imagined you'd commit such heartless acts." The soldiers escorted the two onto the military vehicles. As the vehicles drove away, a heavy silence fell over the crowd. No one dared to bring up the badge again. My father was the first to break the silence. Turning to Grandpa Oliver, he said, "Uncle, we truly owe you. If it weren't for you, who knows how much more harm these two would have caused our village." The villagers chimed in, nodding in agreement and casting flattering looks at Grandpa Oliver. "This was my duty. The college entrance exam is a critical matter for children's futures, and fairness must not be trampled on." I stood silently on the side, watching the military vehicles disappear into the distance. My heart was a swirl of complicated emotions. My mother gently held my hand. I could feel the warmth and slight tremor in her palm. She whispered, "It's over now. From here on, we can start fresh." My father patted my shoulder, his eyes filled with both determination and relief. I reclaimed my rightful spot in university. A month later, the new school term began. Standing on the university campus for the first time, I truly felt like I had been reborn. Meanwhile, occasional news about Sam and Lisa reached my ears. They were sentenced to 2 years in prison, and Lisa's uncle, who had tried to use illegal means to secure her admission, was also dismissed and sentenced to 2 years. Sam was expelled from school due to his involvement in the scandal. I heard that in prison, Sam and Lisa frequently blamed and argued with each other, resenting the other for dragging them down. Lisa's uncle, who had once sought to benefit his niece through dishonest means, repented for his crimes in prison. Their scandal was also picked up by the press. Just as their fabricated top scorer story had been widely celebrated, their imprisonment was now just as publicly exposed. The fake top scorer incident caused a nationwide uproar. Lisa's family publicly announced that they no longer recognized her as their daughter. 2 years flew by, and Sam and Lisa were released from prison, but their lives had been turned upside down, leaving only a mess behind. I heard they eventually stayed together, but neither of them seemed particularly happy about it. As for me, during my years at university, I excelled academically and gained a group of like-minded friends. After graduation, with solid professional knowledge and extensive practical experience, I successfully secured a position in a state institution. Years later, I returned to my hometown. I ran into Sam. He was dressed in tattered clothes, bent over and working the fields. When he saw me, he stared at me, his gaze unwavering. "So, you've been back for a while, haven't you?" I froze for a moment. Oh, so he had also been reborn. That's fine. With the contrast between his past life and this one, his suffering would only deepen. "Yes, I have." "So what?" Sam seemed like he wanted to say more, but after opening his mouth, he couldn't form any words. He lowered his head and resumed his farm work, his movements slow and listless, as if life had drained all the energy out of him. I turned and walked away, feeling no emotions at all. When I returned home, my parents had already prepared a lavish meal. We sat together as a family, the room filled with laughter and joy. Later, I heard from the villagers that although Sam and Lisa were still together, their lives were far from happy. They could no longer take the college entrance exam and were stuck in the village forever. Stuck there. All they had left was resignation and compromise with life. The two often argued over trivial matters, and whatever love they once had been worn down to nothing by the harshness of reality. When I left the village with my parents, I ran into Sam again. I regret it. I shouldn't have treated you like that. No, you're wrong. You don't regret how you treated me. You just regret not coming back sooner than I did. His face instantly turned deathly pale. I turned and walked away, taking my parents with me toward our new life.